and a lot of these were in northern Saskatchewan, which is all forest.
Right,
It's forest and lakes, and so there'd be this hall, and we'd show up, and people would come from probably a fair distance, all the kids and grandparents, and we'd play all night, till 5 or 6 in the morning.
Wow.
And there'd be sometimes a rotating audience, which is pretty interesting. Usually at about 3 or 4 in the morning, all the local rowdies would come in. The bars would be closed from whatever towns were in the area, and they'd all show up. And so all of a sudden there's this big influx, at 3:30 in the morning of all the local rowdy guys. And then it got pretty entertaining. After that.
But they all know how to do a jig.
All the dances. The waltzes and polkas and two-steps, all those dances. Sometimes if there was a caller, we'd do square dances.
Oh, wow.
We didn't always have a caller, but sometimes, a good caller could really, make things happen.
For those that don't know Canada who are watching the program, one thing is that, for many years, Canada promoted, mountains and lakes, and they never really promoted cities, and people thought, well, a little nervous that there's absolutely nothing in Canada. You've lived in Edmonton, and you've traveled a lot across Canada with various with music and things like that, from these out in the middle of nowheres, as we'd say, the boonies, which not everyone knows what that word means, but to large concerts and festivals in major cities, I guess. You've done that. So is there a difference between how the crowd responds to a good fiddle tune out in the country than they do in the center of a major city? Do you find a difference, or?
Well, it's the cities are. Obviously have every imaginable kind of music, but there's always this. In every city there's a group of people who are fiddle proponents. There's a large culture of fiddle players in Canada, and the cities have a lot of them. Often the really good fiddle players gravitate to the cities. And it's, fiddle music is, I would say, a fairly small part of what I do these days. I play with a lot of songwriters. I do some freelance work. I play in a jazz trio, play some blues stuff, and it's, so the traditional fiddle world, in a way, I don't really feel totally connected to it, at the moment. It isn't, a big part of what I do anymore. Although I suppose it has been in the past. And I still play all those tunes. I teach those tunes too. I do a fair bit of teaching, so it's people come and I teach traditional tunes, basically whatever they want.
Well, I find that really amazing, and I have to admit something is that. When I was in my teens, I was connected with people who were involved with the Bluegrass Club in Vancouver. So once a week I'd go out to the club and sort of, strum the guitar.
I've been to that club.
Yeah? And it got very huge after a while. There's like 12 guitar players standing in a row. I was at the last one because I was too nervous and too shy to, try to do anything fancy. Because they always say, they'd go around and everyone would do a little solo. So I'm like, I'm not going to do a solo. No way. I'm just not that kind of a player. But there's sort of almost a not clique, but sort of this little society within society that crosses. I know Western Canada for sure, but. You've played in other countries as well, I'm sure. So does this also happen in other countries? Like there's there's the Bluegrass Club. So, all the fiddlers, all the mandolin players, banjo players, everyone would get together at that place in Vancouver. But, other cities, I know that sort of thing happens as well. But is this more?
Yeah, absolutely that happens. I think every culture and society has their people who are doing a specific thing. Istanbul here, there's a large rock scene, and that's, I don't know how much crossover there is between the people who play traditional Turkish music and the rock or the jazz scene. I know there's a few jazz clubs in Istanbul, so there's obviously a jazz scene that, I haven't really connected with since I've been here. But, one thing great about where I live in Edmonton is that there's a lot of crossover between the different groups of people. You know, there's the bluegrass, the traditional fiddlers, the jazz group, the rock guys, and sometimes there's a lot of overlap between them. And that's one of the things that what I really like about living in Edmonton. You know, it's 1 million people, so it's not huge, but it's big enough to have a really active scene, but small enough so that you get all this crossover. And it's interesting you were saying you know, in the bluegrass world, everyone, you know, go around the circle and everyone plays a solo. But in the fiddle world, everybody plays all the time, all the tunes. In fact, I teach at a fiddle camp, and there's 100 fiddlers, you know, from kids, 5-year-old kids to, you know, 80-year-old people, and everybody's playing. You know, to have 100 fiddles all playing at the same time, you know, the same melody, and you rotate through the tunes, you know, so it changes. But that's the only place where I play with a group that large where everyone is actually playing, and it sounds pretty amazing.
I bet. Yeah. I think that's something that I know a few times at the Winnipeg Folk Festival. They had sort of not workshops, but they had like 5 or 6 fiddle players together from different parts of Canada or different parts of the world, and they'd all sort of do a little bit of a jam and do different styles, different types of music and things like that. In regards to what you're playing, so you play a lot of different types of music. You play jazz and things? Yeah. I noticed the other night when I saw you perform that you did some swing tunes and things like that. I don't know, I should have maybe asked this before so you could maybe prepare, or maybe, you know, I'm always trying to think of everything, but I can't think of everything. What about, can you maybe do a little bit of you know, show a few different styles of music and sort of what's played in those different styles, you know, from jazz to swing to, you know, a little medley, so to speak.
Well, yeah, I don't know, a medley of
not medley,
things,
but you know.
You know, I would say I was playing, you know, say here's a French tune, French Canadian. Actually, that's where I learned how to. You know, in the French Canadian tradition, the clogging while you're playing is very common.
Yeah, I'm going to get you to do that. We have everything set up over here for you, and.
But say a French tune where. That would be when the French say something out of the jazz world. Kind of Duke Ellington style. What else can I do that's different? There's also the Irish fiddle tradition where it's more of a.
There's quite a different feel on each
of
those.
Every style has its own. Sometimes it's a little hard moving from style to style because it almost requires a certain mindset, and you just enter the world of that stylistic thing. And I mean, it's one of the things that's kind of interesting to me now because I've been trying to absorb some very different kinds of music, and